Welcome to the Civic Circus podcast. I am Spencer Duncan.
Hi, I'm George Ismail Feliu Jr.
Let's start the show.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you for being here. Before we really start the conversation, so you just said you sing at church. Does that mean you can actually sing? I cannot sing. I have no singing voice whatsoever, so I'm always impressed when people have some semblance of a singing voice.
What kind of singing do you want?
Well, obviously you're good enough to sing in church, right? So they haven't kicked you out of the choir or anything, or told you
I'm
not
not
to
in
sing.
the choir.
Oh,
I
okay.
just do solos because
Okay.
I got a big mouth.
Okay, well, see, solos is good. That means you can sing a little bit. They wouldn't just let you, Even the worst churches won't let just anybody sing a solo. So, so that's good. I'm glad you got a singing voice. I assume you enjoy doing that since you do it?
Yes, and we have a fantastic piano player, so it makes it even more.
Oh, that helps. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So let's start with, you are not from Topeka at all. In fact, you're about the other end you can get. You are a New York kid, right?
I'm Brooklyn born and
There you
Brooklyn bred,
go.
and one day I'll be Brooklyn dead. You can always take the New Yorker out of New York, but you can never take out the New York out of a New Yorker.
See, there you go. So let's just start right off with, we ask everybody here what their Topeka journey is. So how did you, just so people know, as we'll get into your story a little bit, one of the reasons you're here is you're an author and you write books, and we're going to talk about those books and your process here. But let's start with how you ended up in Topeka, Kansas.
Okay, so the honest truth, she was tall, she was blonde, she was good looking. Isn't that how it always works?
That's always how it works. That's
Yeah,
right. It's
exactly.
Usually there's always a boy or a girl involved of some sort that gets you here. Yep.
So exactly, yes, they trap you and then you're stuck here.
But you stayed here.
Yes.
You didn't have to, right? You could have gone once you got here. You could have technically gone anywhere else. So something made you say, "Hey, Topeka's not bad. I can stick around."
New York got worse.
Yeah.
That's pretty much a lot.
Right. Right. So how long you been here? How long ago was that?
All right, I moved here in 2007.
Okay. Oh, so that's been a little while now.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So that's long enough to almost be a full-on Topekan. Brooklyn boy who's still getting a little bit of Topekan now.
I miss that ocean, brother.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. So what? I mean, obviously New York and Topeka are much different. But what have you liked about it? I mean, what's kept you here? What have you liked about the city that's kind of kept you at Topeka?
A library is wonderful.
Yeah, we do have a really great library.
I mean, there's not many better libraries.
Yeah.
I say that because I haven't been to them, but
Right.
I don't want to assume that, say,
Right.
like the Library of Congress is worse than here. You know,
Yeah.
I'm making assumptions, but yeah,
Right.
I love the library here. And then I have my kids in school and at church. It's like, to me, church and school are very, very important.
No, that's great. So when you were in New York, what was your path? You're an educator, right? You have
Former.
What was your degree? Yeah, what was your
So I took a degree in secondary education,
Okay.
majored in history, and minored in English.
Oh,
I was a dictator in English.
I have an English degree. I have journalism and English degrees.
He's a reporter. Run.
That's right.
But yeah, I was a dictator in English, and then history. I was an insane nutcase that the kids found very, very entertaining.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah. So then you taught for a little while, right?
Yes, sir.
And what all did you teach and where?
Okay, so I was at a private school, International Christian School. It doesn't exist anymore, but I was at International Christian School. I taught 7th, 8th, and 9th grade English.
Oh, yeah.
I taught 7th grade world history, 7th grade New York State history, which is required.
Yes,
Here it's
sure.
Kansas State,
Yeah.
Kansas State history, New York State history. I taught, I taught world history and culture for the high school, which was 10th and 11th. Due to transfers, you know how it is.
Yeah.
It's a
Things
little
change.
mixed.
And
I have a
teachers
senior
move.
here, there, or a freshman here,
Yeah.
just that could fit their schedules. I taught 1 year in economics. That taught me a lot.
I bet.
I taught 1 year. They always give the new teacher economics.
Well, that seems weird, but
That's how
that's
important
like trial
economics
by
was.
fire. I know, that's like trial by fire right there.
I learned. I told the next teacher, play Monopoly. If you play it by the rules, the original rules, you can teach more on economics than
Anything
anyway,
else.
and they'll get it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good way to do it. Yeah. So yeah. Well, that probably give you a good background dealing with kids and people, because that age is always tough. They're at that weird stage of life where they're trying to figure things out, and they're mostly good to teachers. You never know.
It is. I had one that was the sister to one of my classmates in high school.
Oh,
And then we went to college together. She was a tough nut.
Yeah.
Smart girl, but a tough nut to crack because, you know, familiarity is like, you taught my brother.
So now you write. Did you start out life as a big reader?
I started off life as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Yeah.
And my family took me to the Canarsie triplets.
I was gonna say, so we don't want to age you too much if you don't, but like what? So when Star Wars came out, how old would you have been? Was
1983 would have been my first Star Wars movie.
Okay, so that would have been what, Return of the Jedi?
Return of the Jedi. And I remember going there and it was raining and we went in there and we watched it and I was just so wowed by the story.
Yeah.
I was hooked by the story. Remind you, he wrote, initially Star Wars was written for boys.
Yeah.
So as a 5-year-old kid, I was hooked
Yeah.
on that story. And then, you know, of course, you have to get the toys.
Right, of course. That's where he was really smart, making all those toys.
And, you know, because they stopped making, you know, shortly after because no more movies.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe, someone gave me G.I. Joes, the real American hero.
Yep.
And
I love G.I. Joe as a kid.
watched the cartoons, and
Yeah.
I was played with the toys. My best friend in public school, he had G.I. Joes. He read all the comic books, and he would tell me all the comic book stories, and I would tell him, and we would just come up with stories, and then we started writing short stories back then.
Okay. Based off some of that kind, were they kind of in that theme, or were they different? Or did you do something different? Or I mean, they were probably much different, but I mean, they were. Your inspiration was
Second
the G.I.
grade
Joe and the
stupidity.
Star Wars. Yeah, yeah.
Second
but
grade
it was,
stupidity.
yeah.
I had this little comic strip when I was bored with the teacher, and it was my Superbirds, and I would just do little comic strips.
Yeah.
And he had murder. He wrote. Can you take a guess of what he saw?
Right.
So he was watching.
Hey, that's he was ahead of his time, because now every other show on streaming and TV involves, you know, serial killers and murder and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, but that's what Larry Hama, George Lucas and Larry Hama. That's the guy that did those back file cards on on those toys.
Yep.
And also wrote the comics.
Yeah.
Massive influences on me on writing.
Interesting. So at what point then do you figure out, I mean, besides second grade when you're writing short stories, like, I could maybe write more than this. Like, I could actually do something with this and become a writer, or write a book, or write something more substantial than the little short stories.
So the dream was always there. My U.S. I know, was he teaching? Yeah, he was my world history teacher in culture. World history and culture. The very class that I wound up teaching. But he in one of his classes, he was using an illustration of Star Wars, the Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster.
Yeah.
And he was talking about this Star Wars book. I'm not a reader, by the way. I was forced to read the Guadalcanal Diaries for a book report. And for someone who's not a reader, that's very boring and very dry. I didn't realize that there were good nonfiction books. Now, as an adult, I'll say, hey, read Washington's Secret Six. That's like a spy novel. You want to read a biography? Son of Hamas. Fantastic book. It reads like a spy thriller. I mean, you know, I can now point at authors and say, read this guy. If you're going to read nonfiction, read this guy, because he writes in a way that you're engaged.
Yeah.
But back then,
right, you weren't reading any of that.
So he told me a Star Wars Splinter Eye. So next time my mom went to J.C. Penney to go shopping at the mall, there's a Walden's bookstore. That their bookstores before Amazon. There are bookstores.
Right, there were bookstores. Everyone out there, they used to have actual bookstores.
So she used to drop me off, and I would read the comic books on the rack. But that time, I went searching for Star Wars, and I found Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy, book 1, and when she came to pick me up, I begged her, please let me buy that. So I bought that one, the second one, the third one, and then The Courtship of Princess Leia by Dave Wolverton. I read that in one night. I was hooked on reading at that point. Then I read The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, because you found what you liked. And that's a key. Like with our son, he hates reading, right? And he has. And so he can read just fine, but getting him to sit down and read. But we've been able to find some graphic novel type stuff, you know, some anime type stuff. He'll read that. And so we're like, anything that we can find, we hope will do exactly what happened with you, is lead you into that. Hey, it's not that I don't like reading. It's just I've been reading the wrong stuff.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. Seriously.
Yeah. That's the key to that, to getting people to read. So you start reading those, and then you figure out, I mean, so for people to know, we'll talk about some more specific, but how would you categorize the books science fiction or fantasy, or how do you, if they had to be put in the library and the bookstore, where do they, Even if it wasn't totally correct, which category would they put him
Thanks
in?
to AI, I actually now know what category I'm supposed to
there
be
you
in.
go.
I've been saying YA fantasy for years, but it is considered epic fantasy,
Oh, interesting.
which is, Lord of the Rings type stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were telling me your stuff is like Lord of the Rings. As someone who's never read it,
Yeah.
I know, don't crucify me.
I know.
It was
I
on purpose.
I read the first one. I haven't read all of them.
On purpose, because everyone's like, everyone's a knockoff of
I've read all the
Ken.
Dune stuff. I've never dug into the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Have you read the newer stuff?
The new Dune stuff.
Check
Or
out
the-
the Jihad.
I haven't read the most recent ones.
The one that they have the new series based
Yeah,
on.
is it good?
Check out that trilogy, which talks about the origin of how humanity came up.
Yeah, see?
Check out that trilogy, the Butland Jihad and all sorts of stuff. Fantastic science fiction space opera epic. It's
Yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah, no, I'll
Besides
check it
that,
out. No,
yes.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you know it's epic fan. That's good. That's a good,
So,
that's a good category.
so that's what I was writing, and I will be
Yeah.
writing more later on. And I also have many, many ideas. I've got an entire murder and mystery thriller series that I would like to write, and I have a science fiction space opera that I'm planning on funding on Indiegogo soon.
Yeah.
So
So when do you decide, all right, I'm going to try to actually write my first full-on book?
So the first time I tried was in my junior year in high school. My teacher was Mrs. K, and that's not her full name, it's Klemenova, so
Yeah.
which we went short. But Mrs. K, and she was teaching about Native Americans, and we were learning about Native history. And in my brain, by the way, she challenged and pushed me
Yeah.
as a writer. We used to have to do instead of current events, we would do an editorial. And she pushed me into writing better.
Nice.
But she was talking about Native Americans, and I got this idea, and I started writing this big, giant science fiction epic, and it was post-apocalyptic science fiction epic, and I started writing it, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
And I brought it to college, and I was going to write it while I was in college, and then one of my friends, college friends, because he's stupid, like all college kids, erased the whole thing. Really.
Wow. So you don't have any pieces of that left. Like
I
to
actually
even,
have a handful of pages, but not
yeah,
enough.
but
for
not
me
the
to-
whole thing to ever go back and be like, okay, now that I know what I'm doing, I could turn this into something. And yeah,
So-
oh, that's brutal.
I didn't write anything anymore until in 2000. I was driving to Topeka to visit my fiance. I was driving down here to visit my fiance, and I was listening to Von Hellis. I listened to a lot of scores, and it's 1492, and it's about the discovery of America. But he
Yeah.
went all weird, and he wanted to make it all otherworldly. And I'm just listening to it, and I got this idea for a science fiction novel. And I started creating this whole story, this science fiction novel. And then I said,
While
it's
you're
gotta-
driving?
While I'm driving, I got the story. His name is Jake Starlighter. And there was this kid named Hawk Blitzen. And he's up there out in space. That was my original picture. He's out in space repairing an alien starcraft because he is their prisoner. And Jake Starlighter is going to rescue him. And then I came up with other characters, Milo Standish. And I kept on expanding it until I
Yeah.
had this thing. But I read a book on how to write science fiction
Oh, okay.
by Orson Scott Card, and it totally turned me off.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to do the
Can't
science
do
stuff.
it this way.
Science books do not interest me. I have read books on medicine. I have read books on all sorts of things, but science did not interest me.
Interesting.
I forced myself, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, to learn at least enough if you want to apply something.
So I came here to Topeka, and they used to have little newspapers at the library,
Yeah.
and on it said how to write a novel in 30 days.
Really?
Yes, there's a woman named Lessa Staley, and she ran the program.
Yeah. She's still at the library.
Yes, she's a good
Yeah.
lady.
She does good work there. Yeah.
So she came up there and she talked about how you need to take your inner editor, throw it out. She said, this is not the time to write the novel that you wanted to write. So I was like, okay, I can't write my science fiction novel now.
Right.
It's like, but do it 30 days. And in 30 days, I took a fairy tale that I wrote for my wife. I never wrote it, but I
Yeah.
came up with the story and
Yeah.
told the story. And I made it this big, long, complicated fairy tale. And I wrote it out there. It's about 56,000 words. And it also stunk.
Yeah. But you had something, and no one was going to erase it this time. So it was
Correct.
it was a kernel that got you going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I there's a few good chapters in it, and I stole some stuff and use it in other novels.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. So it may stunk, but again, it got you some seeds to start, offshoots of, which get you something else.
Brandon Sanderson says it takes at least 5 novels to find your voice.
Interesting.
And my second one, I started figuring things out.
Yeah. So what does that process look like for you? Are you someone who sits down and just starts writing? Are you someone who like maps out your story and builds huge biographies for your characters? Because every author has all their own different ways they do things. So.
Okay, so that's a very good question. Okay, so there are what's called pantsers, which is what the majority of NaNoWriMo people, National Novel Writing Month, November, that's what she introduced us to. There are pantsers who just sit and write. Example would be Stephen King.
He just starts writing and
Yes,
whatever comes out.
Anyone that doesn't do it his way is not an artist, according to him. I disagree.
Right.
But, I digress on him. And then there are architects. And what they do is what you talked about is they built this entire world and they set up everything and then they fill it in with the story. That's what J.R. Tolkien did. He wrote in a language, he built the world and then told a story in that world. And that's what he did. He's the great architect. I mean, there is no fantasy without him. I mean,
because his gets so detailed. It's just with notes that have notes that have notes, and some people love that, and that's great, and it's been able to turn into something. But that's probably why he had so much, is because he did so much of that architect work in building such an environment for his characters.
And then there's the normal people that are somewhere in between, and they do a little bit of outlining or a little bit of character creation. And so what I do, I make my own brain. And so I write I get the characters. Now, I don't get all of them at the beginning, but I get a handful of characters, and I start off with these characters, and I say, okay, this guy's such and such. His name is so-and-so. For War of the Thunderers, I actually said the commanding officer, the trainer, the second in command, the young soldier, the barbarian killer, the Greek scholar. And this is what I wrote down.
Yeah.
And then I started coming up with who they were, and I came up with their names. And so as I came up with their names, I said, okay, so that's that one, and that's that one. And I kept going until the characters were done. Then I write a little short synopsis, a page or two, about what the story is about. And from that page, I'll take it and divide it into chapters.
Okay.
So 1 or 2 sentences for every chapter. And for my next novel, it's going to be 57 chapters.
Oh, wow.
Granted, there will be more chapters maybe, or there'll be less. As I write it, I find it out. Pirates of the Caribbean, with the pirate code, they're more like guidelines, not rules.
Right. And so then, how of these books, has there any of them that you started out like saying to yourself, I clearly see the vision for this, I know where it wants to, and then halfway through you're like, okay, I'm totally going to change something, whether it was a character, whether it was a plot point, whether it was the ending or I mean, have you had that experience where as you're writing it and digging into it, you're like, I'm totally going to redirect from where I thought I was going to start?
It's a good question. It's a hard answer.
You're right. Because some of those tweaks may be small. It's not like you totally overhaul it, but you may have been like, oh, I thought this was a good idea. And then
writer's block.
Yeah.
Twice. I have 2 novels.
Yeah.
Very good novels, by the way. But the first one was my Stormbreaker Saga book 1. I go up. The characters go up north, my Canada. They go up north to avoid all these other tyrants. They go up north and they meet a character. And I could not write past there.
You're like, great.
I could not write past
that's the end. They met a really nice guy and they all just stayed in Canada and that was the end of the story.
It was a she. It was always a she.
Yeah.
And then I came, it was 50,000 words in a month. I had my 51,000. I stopped and I just I can't finish this until I figure out who this person is.
Yeah.
Came up with her, the Winter Queen of Havenshire. And that's who she was. And the Winter Queen of Havenshire ruled the North, and the North went from the Northlands to the Winterlands. And so I had to figure out what her story was. And as I figured out her story, I actually got more backstory for this book. So and it just kept growing. And it actually made a more complete, a fuller story, more embellished. You got more history, more gravitas.
Yeah.
Go for gravitas.
You're right. No, that's great. Yeah, because I think that process, again, there's so many people doing so many different writing and working on it, and I think everyone's process is so different. But I can imagine if you get to that point where you think you've got it, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I've written all this really good stuff, and I literally don't know where to go from here and what that looks like. That's got to be a little frustrating.
It is, but writer's block is your subconscious telling you something's wrong and you need to figure it out. And that's usually what writer's block is. And that's why in the outline process, because I refined it after that.
Yeah.
That's why in my outline process, I try to get through all the writer's block then so that I can write. Like last year, I wrote 77,000 words in 30 days.
Well, I was going to ask, like, how long does it take? I guess everything's different. Do you give yourself a clock, or do you say, like, are you one of those who will sit down and say, okay, this month or this week or whatever, I have to finish 5 chapters or this? Or do you just say, I know where I'm headed, I know what the goal is, and I just got to let the process be the process?
So let's go back to 2007. We're going in, and she's telling us we have 30 days to write a novel. And it's 50,000 words, 1,667 words a day. That's the goal.
Okay.
Every day, write 1,667 words. Do not edit it. Do not look back at it. Just keep going from there until you finish. I think as a writer, as an English teacher, it's building a habit. And as you're building that habit, each year you should go to make yourself progress. So if that first year I did 56,000 words in 30 days, which, it's phenomenal. If you ever sit
down, there was
also
a real goal there, like to get you kind of kickstart the whole thing to do it.
So yeah, but 1,000 words is a lot of words.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 4 pages of a type page. That's 250 each page.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. And 1,667 words is a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's just building character and building the habit of writing. And then the next year, just add a little bit more, which is what I do. I add a little bit more. As I learned how to edit my novels, I've changed the way I've written. I write now. So I don't write how I wrote back in 2007.
Sure.
The 2008 novel was way better than the 2007, so much so that I said, this is good enough to publish.
Yeah.
The book after that, this one is kind of...
So that first one you wrote has been unpublished?
I can't figure out how to fix it.
Okay.
If I could figure out how to fix it...
It'll be one of those things maybe one day, years from now, you'll find like, aha, I figured it out.
I can't. It's just, I don't know why. But the first book in the Guardians of Havenshire series, I was like, okay, I wrote it. And I wrote it like a history book.
Yeah.
And because I, as a former English teacher, wrote it as an English teacher would write.
Right. And you taught some history, so you kind of had that brain.
So I had to fix that. I had to change the way I wrote, because that's not how people read. A lot of what people call fiction is not written well. Why are kids not reading? I think that's one of the reasons. It's not written well. The ones that sell the most amongst kids are the ones written in first person.
Oh.
And, epic fantasy is usually third person. First person means I'm the one talking. I use the pronouns of I, me, we, us. And then most fiction is written in third person. You, him, her, his. Those are the ways that's how you write a most epic fantasy.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to pull back, change the way it was written. I knew I had something because there was a reader who picked up my manuscript and read it, and she read it in one night. She said it was good.
Yeah.
Needs work, but it's good. Yeah. I was like, I could see the movie in my mind as I read the book. Yeah. To me, that's a massive compliment.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, okay, so let me fix that. So what I did was I kept the stilted dialogue for the older generation. That they talk without can'ts. They say cannot instead of can't.
Oh,
will not instead of won't. They don't use any contractions. I kept the older generation like that. And of course, a younger generation would have their dialogue diced up.
Totally
and
different
all stuff.
diced up. Yeah, slang. And
so that way the kids and because, okay, so my thing, putting the good back in fiction. I don't need foul language. I don't need graphic romance. I have action. I have adventure. I do have violence.
Sure.
That's why I say it's rated PG-13.
Right, because there's some violence.
Because there's violence in there.
Yeah.
I have romance in there. I'm a romantic. I'm a hopeless romantic. I love a good romantic comedy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
I love romance, but I don't go to sort of point where a boy's gonna go.
Mhm.
You know, that's just too much for me. You know the old Harlequin novels. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, they still sell them. They still pump them out. There's a reason there's a Hallmark Channel, man.
Exactly. But I don't do that, but I do have romance, and I have a slow burn because my first series was 4 books. It's a slow burn. Boy meets girl in the first book. Girl hates boy because the boy is the son of, and the girl is the daughter of the villain.
Okay.
And so what I do is I separate them from their 2 camps and put them on their own adventure where they're fighting for their lives together. And I explore Havenshire a little bit, which the Shire is actually a nod towards Tolkien.
Yeah, sure.
But Haven is heaven, So the Shire means land around. So that's where I came up with Havenshire. So the land around Haven and the Guardians of Havenshire, who are supposed to protect him, are also trying to find Haven because it's been forgotten. It's been 1,000 years since they were there. So they're trying to find it because they think it's the way to save all of Havenshire from the Dark One. Whether that happens or not, you have to read the series.
That's right. So you have 2 series?
I have
2 different series that you've done?
I have 2 series in Havenshire.
Okay. And you finished them both. You haven't George R. Martined it and been like making the world wait for your
That's one of my selling points. That literally is one of my selling points. You don't have to wait till I die to finish my story.
Right.
I know what he has the ending.
Yeah, I know, but even I'm like,
he
come
doesn't
on.
want to write
I know
it.
everyone's like, come on,
He's
man.
procrastinating.
Like, yeah, right.
So with me, it's like I'm not changing it a little bit with the science fiction.
Yeah.
With my science fiction stories, because I have 9 books planned for it.
Okay.
So I've got the first trilogy done. The first one's ready to publish. I could publish tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
That's why I do a crowdfund so that I can raise the money for that.
Yeah.
First one's ready to publish. The second one is almost ready to publish. And the third one is also almost ready to publish. I think I got to go over it once or twice more, and bang, it's ready. And it's epic.
So when you wrote them, did you structure them to be a trilogy in your mind? Did you say, I'm going to map this out as a trilogy and then write them that way? Or did you start with one and then realize this could be a series and then have to kind of...
So unlike
it
other
work like
people who
that?
wrote extra,
Right.
it was the first series, Guardians of Havenshire, was supposed to be a trilogy.
Okay.
And I realized my thought process was, because I was like, I want younger people to read this. I cannot have a tome.
Right. A 1,200-page book.
I cannot do that.
People can just look at it and be like, no.
So I was
no.
like, okay, so I want something that the kids could enjoy. I also want something that an adult can enjoy. And there are layers to my book. I've said it. The reread changes the story, because once you know the ending, you got to go back and read it again because everything is there. There are things that, like my wife in the first book, one of the characters, his name is Rogan, which is actually a combination of Remy LeBeau, Gambit of X-Men, and Logan of X-Men. And I combined their names into Rogan. And he's a scrapper, he's a fighter, he's also a romantic. In one of the opening scenes of the first novel, his family dies and he witnesses them die. And she thought I was the worst human being in the world.
Right.
The payoff is in the last chapter of the book, of the 4th book. And
So you got to go all the way through then.
yeah. So now you got to go back and say, okay, so this is why he did this. This is why he did that. To me, that's fun. But it was supposed to be 3 books. But I was like, this is going to be 600 pages, and I don't want 600 pages.
Yeah.
I want to keep around 300 pages.
Yeah.
So I broke it. I wrote an ending. I ended one of the character story arcs. Each book is so you could read it and enjoy it by itself, but it tells a grander story if you read them all together. That I got from Dave Duncan, who's a fantasy author.
Yeah.
And so I got that from him. So each one is independent, but together they tell this massive story. And I did a backtrack. Every book will say what happened in the past from a character.
Okay. So you can kind of...
But it's not exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It gives you the pertinent information, but when it's
like... you still got to have all the others.
It's like...
You still got to read the
it's
others.
Not exactly. It's an unreliable narrator telling you, this is what happened in the last book, kind of, sort of.
Right.
So when you read it, it's like, okay, you can see why he says it that way, but it's not. But from his perspective, that's exactly what happened. That's something that's also important. You and I can see the same exact thing and see 2 totally different things. I think it was the great Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a story where a bunch of people marched up into the mountains and they all saw the same thing and they all saw something different.
Yeah, also something. Yep.
Yeah. So
what is that called? That's
Great
been driving me
Carbuncle. Great.
something like that.
Something to
It'll
that
come to us as we're sitting here.
Yeah. So
who do you trust to read something before you, or give you feedback to get, someone will give you the right kind of feedback that you need to, whether it's make changes or help edit it, or hey man, you almost got it, but this ending stinks or whatever that is, that you'll actually not get defensive and be like, okay, if you said it, it must be true. There must be something to it.
So there is. So I had a teenage girl who babysitted my sons.
Mm-hmm.
She used to be my proofreader.
Yeah.
My son's principal, he still is. She graduated, went to college.
Yeah.
I think she's in archaeology, and she just got recently married.
Yeah.
So she's not going to be reading my books anymore.
Right.
But she used to be. There was another guy. His name's Mark, and he was a teenage guy. He loved my books.
Yeah.
In fact, he recently bought all of them and gave them to his kids.
Oh,
He's got boys now. They're
He wants them
8,
to read
9,
them.
10, 11 years old, and he wants them to read them.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to read them, and I want you to go to George, and I want you to talk to him about it. He goes to my church. But as a teenage boy, he was reading my books,
Yeah.
and there's the council principal. So I try to find teenagers
Yeah.
because
that's part of your market. And so if they don't buy it or they think it's silly or whatever, that gives you some kind of.
they were the reason I started it.
Yeah.
So I want to see what they're saying, although it's harder and harder to find teenagers that read.
Well, yeah, that's that's the problem. So, well, that's good because you got to have somebody give you some kind of feedback. And so, yeah, do you have anyone who helps you edit it, or you just read it and hope you catch everything? And
So I don't use AI in writing,
right
but
for editing,
there's a new thing called AutoCrit.
mm.
And the reason I like it is it doesn't tell me how to fix it.
Right?
It just tells me it's wrong.
just the basic. Yep.
That's why I like it, because
Yep.
I, the writer, have to figure out how to fix it. So I like it for that reason. I think
that's-
other people don't like it because they want it to.
I know they want it to rework. It's like, no, you got to use the human brain before the computer
So,
brain.
Yeah. So I do use AI to that extent. And that's how I know what most of my books score on readability scale was like 93, 94, 95%.
Yeah.
So, they score pretty high on readability. The science fiction stuff is a little lower, but I'm also using bigger words. So
Yeah.
I have to. I'm sorry. I didn't have a choice.
Do we have, I don't know what to call it, a group of people like you who write here in town that you talk to or that get together or have conversations or ever congregate and just talk about maybe not what they're doing, but the world itself of writing in Topeka?
We used to, and I think there is. I'm just
Mhm.
not a part of that.
Okay.
At the library, I think there is. I'm just not a part of
Yeah.
it. But there used to be more of us. One guy works at the Department of Education. I don't want to throw his name out.
No,
but
no,
he's
it's
he's an author,
Yeah.
and he's an author. There's a couple of other people. There used to be like a group that used to meet at the comic book shop, and
Yeah.
it was artists and writers. And one of them is, you'll see a lot of us at Topeka Rama
Yeah.
over at
Yep.
the Ag Hall.
Yep.
You'll see a lot of us there.
Yeah.
And most of us, not all, are local.
Yeah. So do you have any kind of group like that you can, maybe it's online or when you go other places, or that you can at least have some of these conversations, the state of publishing or the work itself, or people who don't understand what the heck you're doing that you can have conversations with?
I'm on Facebook groups.
Yeah.
There's a Facebook group, Apex Writers, which was started by Dave Wolverton before he passed away. It really stinks because he was about to take over as the guy that brought in a bunch of writers
Oh.
at a major publishing place, and there's a short list of us, and,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm that close
Yeah.
to being in the big leagues.
Right.
That's the problem with indie authors. If we're not out there selling, we're not
Right.
selling, because I'm a blue collar middle class guy, lower middle class,
Yeah.
but I'm a
Right.
blue collar middle class guy, and I got to work 60 hours a week to support my family,
Yeah.
and we sometimes don't make it. So,
Right.
and then I do this on the side, and this costs money. I mean, every
Sure.
book costs money. If I do most of my editing, so I save myself money because I don't. But that's one of the big expenses.
Yeah.
The other is covers.
Well, I was going to ask, so who does your art and who does your covers?
So,
Because there is real artwork. I know we're a podcast. If you watch us on YouTube, you can see some of the books on the table. But I mean, there are real covers. It's not just like a title with words and no picture. They have real, honest to goodness art.
Fiverr.com, this cover.
Ah.
I had an artist friend in New York who's after the hurricane that hit New York.
Mhm.
She's no longer an artist. Good friend of mine though. She did the artist for the first book.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, we lost. Both of us have lost the
original.
the JPEG. So
Ah.
so
Yeah.
I had. That's why one of the reasons I didn't want to edit, because I was afraid that it was going to kick this cover out and it was going to
Yeah.
be good. And she did it for free for me.
Yeah.
This one here is I can't remember the name of it, but selfpub.com.
Okay,
Self-
so you use
self-pub
different
cover.
programs or artists. Or
I
different-
hunt around until I find the right cover.
Yeah.
I have a picture of my head of what I want. And then this was done by someone who used to work at the library.
Oh, okay.
Granted, I actually had to stretch this out so you don't see the full cover.
Yeah, but
But yeah,
Okay.
so different people have done different things for me. And so, but yeah, it'll, to get a good cover, you're looking at $500 to $600 on what's most expensive thing I think was like $600
yeah.
that I did. But if you're gonna get a real artist to do it, you're looking about $1,000 to $5,000.
Yeah, 'cause they like to make a living too.
Yeah, well, yeah. So they have to make a living. So,
Yeah.
so you got it's going to be about $5,000 to $6,000 for that. Another $5,000 to $6,000 to edit your book, and then how do you depend on how you want to publish? I know a lot of people who crowdfund,
Mm-hmm.
including several best-selling authors.
Yeah.
They'll make $1 million. They will go to China and they will publish the books in
Post it
China.
there. Yeah.
And they will pay less than I'll pay for my books. Everything I publish is here in the United
In the
States.
U.S. Yeah.
I do everything in the United States. I don't want to go to China. I feel I'm an American author. I need to keep as much of it here in America as I possibly can.
Sure.
I might use a Fiverr.com that might actually be somewhere.
They
in
might
another
use
co-
somebody, but you're at least using the
I'm
direct.
doing my best
Right.
to stay here in the United States of America. I'm doing my best to keep Americans keeping the money here. But yeah, it's not easy, and I understand why they go to China, because even with tariffs, it's still a lot cheaper than what I'm paying for my books.
Yeah.
So
Are there digital versions?
yes,
Can people also, if they don't want the hard copy, but they read it on their tablet, can they get those
so
or that too?
I'm religiously against this. not really religiously,
Right.
But I found this out when I did my first Kindle book. When you buy a Kindle book, you don't own it. You're renting. And
Right.
at any time, Amazon can take it away, and I can take it away. You don't own that. I love physical copy. I still buy
Yeah.
CDs. I know,
Yeah.
psycho, right?
Right.
But I like to own the music I listen to. I like to own the
Yeah.
books that I read. I am a bookaholic. I'm sorry. My
Yeah.
name is George Feliu Jr. I am a bookaholic. I am so sorry for being a bookaholic. I love books. For me to relax, if I'm stressed out, I'll go to Barnes & Noble, walk the aisles, touch the books. I'll go to Dean's bookstore,
Yeah.
walk the aisles, touch the
Yeah.
book. He thinks I'm a weirdo, but that's okay.
That's all right. He'll still sell you stuff. So
I'll
it's
go
all
to the
good.
library, I'll
Right.
do the same thing at the library, and that relaxes me, believe it or not. It
Yeah.
calms me down. And life is stressful. And I honestly think that when we read fiction to escape the stresses of life,
Yeah.
not to add to it. And while my characters will go through stressful situations, my job is to relieve your stress through my characters.
Yeah.
So, but yes, book ones will always be free on Kindle Unlimited. There is a price tag on there, and I do that on purpose because Kindle, after you finish the Kindle book, will pay me. They will not pay me until
Oh,
you
Gotta
finish.
finish it. Interesting.
So, I don't like monopolies, and Amazon is very quickly becoming a monopoly.
Yeah.
And they are my publishers, by the way. They publish my
'cause
books.
they-
I mean,
yeah.
I'm eternally grateful because I'm able to publish through them. But
Right.
at the same time, that's like, if I want to do an audiobook, you're looking at 15 grand, 10 to 15 grand.
That's crazy.
And, I can't afford that.
No, that's wild.
That's why I want to do crowdfunding, because I haven't done very successul. I've also learned that crowdfunding is for the rich and famous,
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Ironically, that's what it's become.
because everyone that's rich and famous gets their funds crowded. Their
Yeah.
crowds.
Money goes to them, and then not to the purpose it was originally intended for, which was people who needed the money to crowdfund because they couldn't get the resources.
So now they're taxing you on your
Yeah.
crowd funds because the government's figured out, oh, wait, you're rich. So now if I was to be successful, guess what happens
Right,
to me?
yeah.
It's like, I was going to use this for this.
So tell people how they can get your books, man.
All right. So I have an actual website now called felupress.com.
You're gonna have to spell that for people.
I know, because it's French. I'm American. There's no yellow on my back, okay? But Feliu Press, that's lowercase f as in Frank, E as in Edgar, L as in Larry, I as in Isaac, U as in umbrella, press, PRESS.com. If you go there, there are links that'll take you to the hard versions. But where the hard version, the physical copies are, you'll also be able to see where the
Get the other versions.
the KDP
Digital
stuff,
copies,
yeah,
yeah.
digital copies. So that is the easiest way. Or go to Amazon.com and type in George Feliu. You will get all of my books and some other people.
Of course.
I actually, if you ever find a Feliu they're related to me, I may not know them. But
Right, but they
it's,
might- yeah,
it's
they
a
might.
small last name.
I bet it
and there's
is,
a
yeah.
historian that was that's in Argentina that's written historical books and Spanish. But he's down there. And then, yeah, it's kind of fun when I Google the last name Feliu and I get to see the different people.
Right. All right. Well, so this is the portion. Is there anything you wanted to add about anything before we? I always tell people turn the spotlight to me. I ask every guest to bring a question or two, a couple questions
then I dropped it.
and I always tell them I don't want to know what it is. But before we do that, is there anything we didn't talk about or touch on, or that you want to put out in the world before we keep moving?
I'm also on Facebook on the Feliu Press Facebook page.
yeah.
There is no 99. If Facebook puts something on there, it's not me. But
Right.
So Feliu Press page is not about politics. You might see politics on my personal page,
Right,
but you will
when
not
it's
see
there.
politics on Feliu Press. To me, it's all about the stories. It's about telling stories. It's about how to help you be a better storyteller. I'll make announcements of crowdfunding, or this book will be released on such and such day, or here's my new cover, things like that. So, but I try to keep. One other thing, I rewrite movies.
Oh, there you go.
I started this with Ghostbusters, the all-female Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
and I made my own version. I kept only 2 of them. I kept the Kate McKinnon character,
Yeah.
and I kept I forgot her name. This is the tall black lady,
Leslie Jones.
Leslie Jones.
Yeah.
I felt like I would have revolved it around those 2,
Yeah.
because I would have made her Leslie Jones the daughter of Winston.
Yeah.
And I would have made the other one the daughter of Egon. And I had this whole story idea where I would have given you a basically all-female Ghostbuster, but it would have been connected. And
Connected,
I had this
yeah.
whole story in it. Yeah, I'm gonna republish it on my blog.
Interesting.
But it's
Yeah.
but yeah, I got that idea because I was saying you can do a good story. And because it was politically driven to make it all female.
Right.
But I was like, you don't need to make it politically driven. Just tell a good story, and people will root for you. People will want it. I mean, I'm not a Ghostbusters fan, but I did research and I did it, and I created my own story, and it works. I told it to people, and people were like, oh wow, that really is a much better movie. Now your turn.
All right, my turn. We flipped the spotlight a little bit. Here we go.
Okay, here we go. This is very difficult. This is something that's very close to my heart.
All right.
Are you a reader?
I am a reader. I try to balance nonfiction and fiction, sometimes kind of at the same time to balance it out, or I try to alternate. I took, and some of the stuff I'm just trying to get caught up on. Like I had never read, the most recent fiction I read was, I'd never read any of the like Jack Reacher stuff.
Okay.
So then I started watching, and I'd seen the movies but then I saw the TV show, and I was like, well, and it is. And so I was like, well, I want to read a couple of the books. So that's what I was reading recently to get caught up on what were those like. Nonfiction stuff, I'll bounce around. Sometimes it's really, it's not boring, but it's boring to the rest of the universe. Like, and I have a Substack, and sometimes I'll put out there, what have I been reading? And it's like a book about how you build a city, right? It's like, it's very nerdy, city council-ish type of related stuff, which helps me, I hope, as a city council person. But then I also just finished The History of Comedy by Keegan-Michael Kay and his wife. They just went through basically, it's a really good book, and it's fascinating. It's just talks about the history of comedy and kind of, it's half jokey itself, but it's also filled with, here's kind of key landmark things in American comedy throughout time. And so yeah, I try to balance it. I can't read just serious stuff all the time. I listen a lot. I do listen to some audiobooks when I drive around the state a lot. So it's good to have an audiobook to read. So a good one that's it's like 40 hours long was like Team of Rivals, about Lincoln and pulling together his team. So that was it's for some reason, this sounds weird. I can listen to nonfiction audiobooks way better than I can fiction.
I understand.
So I read the fiction books way better. I want the hard copy. And so I don't know why that is, because in theory it shouldn't matter, but somehow it does.
I completely understand. I was like, yeah, the Black Count.
I don't think I know
I got it at the library. It's about Alexander Dumas's father.
Oh.
He was the Black Count because he was a black man, and
Yeah.
Alexander Dumas was I don't know the split, but
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal story because it's the Count of Monte Cristo,
Interesting.
and that's his
I have to
life.
check that one out. Yeah.
So, but I understand. But I listened to that, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I so much prefer a nonfiction book listening to the audio.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know why that is. Maybe it sticks in my brain better because but I don't think so. So I don't know. I have no rational reason for that. But yeah, that's how my audiobook world works.
My next question.
Yeah.
Are you ready? This is
Yeah,
going to be
I'm
hard
ready.
hitting. Again, something very dear and close to my heart. What was that book that I told you what made me a reader? I want to know what made you a reader.
Man, that's a good question. So I used to have a lot of, I don't know if this made me a reader, but I remember as a kid, I had a lot of my dad's old and my uncle's old comic books. We're talking like the Supermans and the Archies. I read a lot of Superman and Archies, which is two very different comic books, right? So I used to read a lot of those. And then I got into like Mad Magazine. I used to read Mad Magazine all the time, even though it was ridiculous. I'm not even sure I was supposed to early on, but one of our neighbors across the street had it. She actually had, her husband passed away, and she had all his magazines in the basement, which consisted of primarily 2 magazines, Playboy and Mad Magazine. Yeah, we won't get, but the point is I read a lot of Mad Magazine. Maybe it says a lot about me that I read it, migrated to it first, and I did the Playboys, but the point is, so I started there, and then I got into Mad Magazine. But I remember it would have been middle school. Had to be 7th grade, because when I went to middle school, 6th grade was still and they were like, you have to read historical fiction. And I chose Gone with the Wind. Don't know why. Ridiculously long book. I'm in 7th grade, and I read, and even the teacher was like, are you sure, dude? Like, and I really didn't even know totally what it was about. I'm not even sure why I started with that. Maybe my grandma had it, and I was like, oh, and so I read Gone with the Wind in 7th grade, and since then I just kept, and I think part of it was, I don't know that wasn't my favorite book or anything. I mean, it's Gone with the Wind, it's fine. But I think the fact that I got through such a big book, and I was like, okay, there was a lot of interesting stuff. I'm in 7th grade. I can do this. I can read big books, no problem. So I think that's kind of my trajectory of reading that finally got me to be like, to become besides being a journalism major, I enjoyed being an English major, and you had to read a lot. Like, that part of being an English major was lots of books really fast.
I know, true. But I just want you to know that I was made fun of for reading Silas Marner because we were required to.
Yeah.
I was like one of 2 students that read it, and we
actually
were required
read
to
it?
read it, and I loved it. But
Yeah.
but everyone was like, "Oh, you read it?" So
You're
so
like,
I just
"What?"
want you to know, you read something far more feminine than I
Yeah.
did. I know both were written by women, but at least my guy was a guy. My book was about a guy. You went all the way.
It was
Didn't you?
good. I mean, all these years later, there's parts of Gone with the Wind that may be problematic, although that's part of the history of our country, and knowing that stuff is good. But yeah, since then I've never had an issue reading, but
My mom loves that book. I wasn't being critical. Of it
No,
at all.
no, I know. I'm just saying, it was a weird
And
book
she's
to
Hispanic,
read.
so
It was a weird book to read in 7th grade. Yeah.
So, okay, that's okay. That's fair. No, that's fair.
Yeah. So now I know I can read. Then I knew I could read big books, man. Now I can do it. I still never read Tolkien yet, like you, but
Ditto.
it's okay.
How
But I read
about
lots
War
of
and
other ones.
Peace?
I did read War and Peace. Although I'm pretty sure I had to in college for something. I'm pretty sure. I also took in college, there was a writer, James Gunn, not the current James Gunn who's making Superman, but he's a science fiction writer, and he was pretty well known. In fact, there's a lot of writers today he was a KU professor, and he taught very science fiction. I mean, really good stories, but he tried to base them in some kind of actual science fiction and do it. And he was one of he used to tell, but I took his class in summer school. So you had to read a few of his books, but it was like 17 books you had to read before the class started, because then it's summer
That's a
school.
lot.
So then you have to, barrel through them. And I remember doing that, but he was fascinating because, again, he was a real author who really had work out there. And so he had real stories to talk about as a professor, not just, you guys should like books. He's like, I'm a writer too. I get it. I'm in the industry, and I understand what a cluster it can be and a mess. And even then, he would tell some crazy stories about the industry itself. So that was pretty fascinating too.
Cool.
Yeah. Any other questions? Is that it? That's fine if that's it.
No, I think because you answered one of them when we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
So you kind of killed me. So
No,
it's okay.
that's good, man.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm a forgiving person.
That's all right. It's good to
Just
be
don't mess with me because I'm Puerto Rican and we like to. We'll bite back.
Brooklyn, Puerto Rican. See,
I'm a New York Rican. I think
Right.
that's the terminology that they call us.
There you go. Make sure I get it right. That's
Or
important.
I call it Upper San Juan and I call San Juan Lower New York.
So as we close out, we're gonna do an email here in a minute. But as you look at you say your next trilogy's close. One's ready, the other two. At what point do you start? I guess you have to finish the other two to make them. But at what point do you then start thinking, like, what's next? Or do you say, I got 3 out there, I'm gonna chill, I'm gonna take a break, or is your brain always on, even if you don't want it to be, trying to think of ideas or things that come across?
So the world is surrounded by ideas. They're
Yeah.
dangerous ideas. But I'll look at a title of a book. I'll see some video on YouTube. I'll be reading something, and just a kernel of idea will pop in my head. If I could retire and just write full time right now, if I could, I'm set for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
The science fiction has 9 books. I've got 4 more to write, and I'll write one starting November 1st. But I'll write one, and then I'll make it just 3 more. But I got that when I was, and this is something that kind of helped me when I was younger. When I was 13 years old, I got into comic books.
Yeah.
By the way, Smallville, Kansas,
Yeah.
right outside of Topeka.
Yeah.
According to the comic books,
According to
it was called Our World at Wars, and it was right outside of Topeka.
Oh, nice.
So that's where they put it in the early 2000s. So,
Interesting.
so just so you know,
Yeah,
Smallville was right
good
down
to
the
know.
block.
I didn't know that. See?
I got heavily into comic books, and my friend Greg Bourne, he was supposed to become an artist, and I was supposed to become a writer.
Yeah.
But he would, throw names at me, and I would just create comic book characters, and I created an entire comic book universe. I created a comic book universe, and one day I would like to be wealthy enough to hire 4 artists
To actually create the comic book, to do the art.
Yeah,
You
I
write
created
the book,
one.
they do the art.
I did one. There was a guy. There's a writer named Tom Taylor. I'm not a fan of his. James Gunn is, but
Right.
I'm not. And he said he was going to have the first Puerto Rican character in comic book history, and I was excited. So I actually got it because I wanted to read it. And so the description for the character, you saw the character. She's Puerto Rican and she's angry, and she looked like a man. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, if you did that to a black character, you would be canceled.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Get it right. At least.
Give us something. So I literally sat down and I scribbled out my own character. I created my own. She is, she's a New Yorker through and through. I kind of based some of it on my grandmother, and I kind of did a little bit of this, and she's my own little superhero and had her own little character arc, and I know what I would do with her if I was to write her. And I have a lot of ideas, and then a year from now, I'll have more ideas.
Yeah.
And then a year from that, I'll have more. They're all around us, and even just watching a movie that I don't like,
Right. You get something from it.
I'll get an idea. And I was like, I could do this better.
Yeah.
And this is what I would do to make it better. And then I just change the characters and
Right.
make them
Change
my
the name,
own.
make them your own, and there you go.
And
You
then,
got a story.
It's like there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
The idea is the execution. Can you tell a story that will hook people? And stories define us, and stories lead us to where we're going. And it's just that this is actually some philosophy from one of my short stories. I've been writing some short stories, and the character is Galen. His name is Galen the Gleeman, based on Alan O'Dale of Robin Hood. And
Nice.
and that's his philosophy. And but some of it is mine, because every one of my characters, whether they're good or bad, there's a part of me that's part in there. So.
Yeah. Somewhere in there.
Mhm.
Well, all right. Well, one thing we do is an email the week that I get, I give it to the guest, let you read it, and then I'll try to answer for whoever sent it to me.
In my best radio voice. Dear City Councilman, where can I get more information about the budget?
Yeah, because who doesn't want to read more about our budget, right? That's why people don't want to read. We're trying to push budgets on them. We did finish the budget 2 weeks ago, and we have been getting a lot of questions about how people can see it. I will say the city of Topeka, the entire budget is online. In fact, it's into a portal. If you go to our website, topeka.org, www.topeka.org, we have a budget portal. You can even sort through it and look at each thing, each department, and each line by line, and how we spend our money. And so since we just passed the 26 budget, people people are kind of wondering where we're spending the money. So we've gotten quite a few questions. So I want people to know that's where you can go. Go to the website, find the budget, and if people ever have questions about it, just call and ask. I took some questions a day from some people who had some, why are we spending money on this? And why are we spending money on that? And a few things I explained it, and they were like, that makes sense. And one or two things I said, I agree with you. I don't know either, but I'm just one vote out of 10. So I lost that battle. So that's how democracy works. Welcome to the process. So that's how people can go find information on the budget. I'm sure you'll make that your reading assignment. The next thing you'll read, I'm sure will be the budget, the Topeka budget. All right. Well, anything else? Anything you want to mention before we say goodbye to the world?
People are people. Stop putting labels where it's hurtful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. This has been a great conversation. I'm really glad you could come on. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.